O thou kind Lord, this dearly cherished maidservant was attracted to thee, and through reflection and discernment longed to attain thy presence and enter thy realms. With tearful eyes she fixed her gaze on the kingdom of mysteries. Many a night she spent in deep communion with thee, and many a day she lived in intimate remembrance of thee. At every morn she was mindful of thee, and at every eve she centered her thoughts upon thee.
Mm.
Like unto a singing nightingale she chanted thy sacred verses, and like unto a mirror she sought to reflect thy light. O thou forgiver of sins, open
Mm.
up the way for this awakened soul to enter thy kingdom, and enable this bird, trained by thy hand, to soar into the eternal rose garden.
Mm.
She is afire with longing to draw nigh unto thee. Enable her to attain thy presence. She is distraught and distressed in separation from thee. Cause her to be admitted into thy heavenly mansion. O Lord, we are sinners, but thou art the forgiver. We are submerged in the ocean of shortcomings, but thou art the pardoner, the kind. Forgive our sins and bless us with thine abundant grace. Grant us the privilege of beholding thy countenance and give us the chalice of joy and bliss.
Mm.
We are captives of our own transgressions, and thou art the King of bountiful favors. We are drowned in the sea of iniquities, and thou art the Lord of infinite mercy. Thou art the giver, the glorious, the eternal, the boundless, and thou art the all gracious, the all merciful, the omnipotent, he who is the bestower of gifts and the forgiver of sins.
Mm.
Verily, thou art he to whom we turn for the remission of our failings, he who is the Lord of lords.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gary. Corinne, are you ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been asked to read this passage from Some Answered Questions about Muhammad. Muhammad appeared in the desert of Hijaz in the Arabian Peninsula, which was a treeless and barren wilderness, sandy, desolate in the extreme, and in some places, such as Mecca and Medina, exceedingly hot. Its inhabitants were nomads, in the morals and manners of desert dwellers, and were entirely bereft of knowledge and learning. Even Muhammad himself was illiterate, and the Quran was originally written upon the blade bones of sheep or on palm leaves. Infer then from this the conditions prevailing among the people to whom Muhammad was sent. His first reproach to them was this: why do you reject the Torah and the gospel? And wherefore do you refuse to believe in Christ and in Moses? This statement came indeed hard upon them, for they asked, what then is to be said of our fathers and forefathers who did not believe in the Torah and the gospel? He answered, they had gone astray, and it is incumbent upon you to renounce those who do not believe in the Torah and the gospel, though they be your own forefathers. It was in such a land and amidst such barbarous tribes that an illiterate man brought forth a book in which the attributes and perfections of God, the prophethood of his messengers, the precepts of his religion, and certain fields of knowledge and questions of human learning have been expounded in a most perfect and eloquent manner.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Garrett. Corinne. Oh, wow. David, are you ready?
Okay. So, dear friends, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Dr. Todd Lawson. He earned his doctorate degree at McGill University and he is currently Professor Emeritus of Islamic Thought at the University of Toronto. He has written numerous publications, more than we can possibly mention here. His bio makes mention of his writings on the beauty of the Quran, which in and of itself makes me eager to hear him speak. So, dear friends, please welcome Todd Lawson.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. And thank you, Nasir, Dr. Bashar Al-Lahi, for inviting me to this very, very important series of talks that you have. It's made such a massive contribution to the spiritual life of our realm, where we don't know where we are. It's almost like la makan, la zaman and Zoom business, but this is where we are. And you have made a beautiful, splendid contribution, you and the people who help you. And I'm honored to be in your group. Today we're going to speak about the inexhaustible spiritual resources of Islam, a topic that is not frequently noticed in the current affairs of today, especially in this part of the world. But in other parts of the world, it's well known that Islam is composed of two types of teachings: social teachings, number one, and spiritual teachings, number two. This, in fact, is one of the principles of the Baha'i faith. The Baha'i religion teaches that all the religions agree. They're all from the same God. They're all addressed to one humanity. And the differences that we see amongst the various religions that sometimes present causes for disagreement and conflict are really down to one fact, and that is the fact that I just mentioned, that each religion is composed of two types of teachings, two types of revelation: a revelation to do with the current social situation, which the prophet or messenger of God is addressing in his revelation, and an eternal, unchangeable spiritual teaching. Now, these spiritual teachings are passed on from religion to humanity as a whole. And they remain, in a sense, unchanged, but because these spiritual teachings are articulated in a variety of different languages, certain aspects of them are emphasized according to the music of the language in which they are revealed. So there are a lot of reasons for difference and variety in religious teachings, but not all of them can be ascribed to anything resembling disagreement. Furthermore, the religion of Islam, being the most recent, until the Baha'i and Baha'i religion, the most recent revelation from God, has a special message for all of humanity. So why don't I try and make my PowerPoint actually work so I can also see everybody at the same time, because I like to see the people. While I'm talking, but I see many of you have turned off your video, so maybe it's not such a huge tragedy if I can't get it to work. Anyway, let us share my screen. And let me know if you can see it. And actually, for some reason, I think I can still see you. Yes.
No, we can see.
I can see you. Amazing. All right, so here we are. So this is a Baha'i perspective. Not the Baha'i perspective, but this is one person who's been trying to be a Baha'i since 1968, who's trying to tell you what he thinks about the inexhaustible spiritual resources of Islam, and supporting it with some teachings from the writings of Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, the Bab, House of Justice, and the resources of Islam, largely the Quran, but sometimes the Hadith. So we'll have a look, shall we? So I just mentioned this. The Baha'i perspective is it's indisputable that the Baha'i faith teaches that each messenger of God, each prophet, what Baha'is now call manifestations of God or divine manifestations, has come at various times in history. Their arrival, it may be seen as punctuating human history on the planet. Things change before and after they come. Their presence on the planet causes us to see the sequence of human history in a sequential light and to make a certain kind of sense out of it. So the spiritual teachings, what we're concentrating on here, is that those kinds of teachings that do not have to do with specific laws of obedience or restrictions or inheritance or, if you like, crime and punishment. The spiritual teachings have a special character which will become clearer as we go along. And it's also the case that spiritual teachings sometimes even are synonymous with mystical teachings. And sometimes, as you will see emphasized here, sometimes spiritual teaching seems to have immediate social implications. So there's sort of a combination between spiritual and social teachings. We don't have to solve all these questions tonight, but what we want to do is peer a little more deeply than we usually do into this spiritual and mystical thought world of Islam, or spiritual world of Islam. After all, Muslims are what, nearly 5 billion people on the planet these days. So we're trying to honor and understand and appreciate the spiritual contribution to humanity that has been part of the divine plan for the last 1400 plus years. Because Baha'is believe that Islam is a message from God. Spiritual resources have to do with the inner life of the human being. Sometimes the inner life is indistinguishable from something we can call the emotional life or the spiritual life. They also have to do with the nature of God, angels, holy books, messengers, the so-called last day, and divine decree. The spiritual resources of the Islamic religion, just like the spiritual resources of the Baha'i religion or the spiritual teachings of Judaism, have as their focus what we might think of as the ecology of the soul, or the ecology of the human imagination from which everything comes. So the spiritual teachings are designed by their creator to make healthy the internal life of humanity. And they're expressed in various ways from the beginning of time, which has no beginning, until the present day, until the end of time that has no end. So there will always be these spiritual teachings. Islam has numerous spiritual teachings. We can't possibly look at all of them this evening, but we can look at some of them, and we get a sort of an introduction to their character, their power, the kind of light that they reflect. Yes? So most of the teachings we will discuss this evening, I want to make sure I'm looking at the clock. So it's 5 minutes to 8. And what do we have? About a half hour? Is that how it goes? The clock says 7:55. So, I believe that the Quran is the only completely authentic divine book of religion, apart from the scriptures of the Babi and Baha'i revelations. So we have a special appreciation and understanding of the Quran. The Guardian wrote in this famous letter, signed on Christmas Day, 1938, which became a book with the title The Advent of Divine Justice, In that work, he has this famous statement about how the study of Islam is very important for the Baha'is. And this is an excerpt from that. The Baha'is must approach reverently and with a mind purged from preconceived ideas, the study of the Quran, which apart from the sacred scriptures of the Baha'i and Baha'i revelations, constitutes the only book which can be regarded as an absolutely authenticated repository of the Word of God. Baha'is also, as I mentioned, believe in progressive revelation. That is to say that there is a series of divine messengers, all of whom are from the same God, all of whom are spiritual siblings, if you like, all of whom are equal in status. Now, the Quran is especially emphatic about this, that all of the messengers of God have the same rank. And it's explained in the Baha'i writings that one of the reasons they appear different is precisely because of this idea of the changing of time and social circumstances. It's because some manifestations of God or some prophets, some messengers speak about different things. It is seen that the message is different, but that's illusory. They speak about different things because their audience understands things differently. Another way of looking at it is this. The prophet or messenger speaks to their people in a language that they can understand. And the receptivity and knowledge and background of a given audience changes from time and place. So in a very real sense, it may be helpful to think of the audience as actually revealing the text, because the text is actually conditioned by the understanding of the audience. Is it clear? The audience changes over history and time because of different places that they live, in the north, in the south, in the east, and the west. But knowledge and the idea of knowledge is one. Islam says this. Baha'u'llah says this. The Baha'i faith teaches us. Knowledge is essentially one. Baha'u'llah quotes in the Seven Valleys the famous hadith from Ali, sometimes from the Prophet. Knowledge is a single point, and the ignorant have multiplied it. Right? So we're the ignorant, shall we say. But so knowledge is profoundly unified and consolidated. It's a special species of creation. All human beings are born good. This is a bit of a revelation for people in the West, in the Christian West, because Christianity has taught almost from the very beginning, except for a period of tussle in the early centuries, from the very beginning that human beings are born in something called original sin. Islam has nothing to do with this. It rejects this absolutely, completely. It says that all human beings are born in a pure state that enables them to recognize the oneness of creation, the oneness of God, and the oneness of humanity. And this state is called the fitra, and it comes from the Surah of Rome, Surah al-Rum, 30, Surah number 30, verse 30. And here is a translation of it, which is, all translations are equal in that they all are equally far from being perfect, if you like, all translations of the Quran. So read as many translations as you can find, right? There are some, obviously, that are more beautiful than others. The Guardian liked the Rodwell translation very much, but the Guardian, I think, died before the translation of Arthur Arbery was published, and I'm sure he would have loved that translation because it's very beautiful and emphasizes different things. But you won't hurt yourself by reading as many different translations as possible. most of them have something interesting to say, something about it. But just remember that they're all sort of equidistant from being a bullseye of communicating the beauty and power and meaning of the Quran. So here's the verse here. And so, set thy face steadfastly toward the one ever true faith, turning away from all that is false, in accordance with the natural disposition, that's the fitra, which God has instilled into man. For not to allow any change to corrupt what God has thus created, this is the purpose of the ever true faith, but most people know it not. So this state that we're talking about, the natural disposition, is pure goodness. Quite the opposite of anything that we might put the name original sin to. So this is what Muslims believe. And this is what Muslims teach. Here is another emphasis of the same idea from the Surah of the Fig, Surah 95. We create man in the finest state, or the most perfect state, or the most beautiful state. The word is ahsan, ahsan, right? As in ahsan al-qasas, the most beautiful of all stories, which is the story of Joseph, right? So the Quran says that we are created in the best possible way. So we must take this seriously, because to doubt that we are good is very close to doubting God. If we read the Quran correctly, we have an obligation to think of ourselves as being good. This came up too soon. I'm going to look at this a little bit later, but it doesn't hurt to read it now. It won't do any harm, shall we say. This is from the Hidden Words of Baha'u'llah, and it sort of reflects this being created good teaching, that it's a spiritual teaching from the Quran and from Muhammad's revelation. It's the first hidden word in the beautiful book, the Hidden Words of Baha'u'llah, which, as you know, some are composed in Arabic and some have been composed in Persian. This is the first one in the Arabic compositions. It's very, very beautiful. O Son of Spirit, possess thou a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. We'll come back to this, but we'll leave it for now, okay? This is in Arabic, and so, in a sense, if anything is in classical Arabic or Quranic Arabic, it is already immediately, in some sense, irradiated by the light of Islam, just by virtue of it being uttered in Arabic. And this is we have the Arabic further down, I believe, but we'll come back to it later. I'll just read it again. O Son of Spirit, possess thou a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. All right. Now, one of the things that Islam has done in the Quran is to focus our attention for the first time, it seems, in a very emphatic way, on this idea of the human being. I mean, yes, naturally, human beings are mentioned in the Hebrew Bible and in the Hindu scriptures and in the Buddhist scriptures and in the New Testament, the Gospel. But in Islam, in the Quran, this idea of mankind, nas, insan, bashar, is repeated so often and in so many different circumstances that you come up, if you read it and track these things throughout the 6,000 plus verses of the Quran, you see a specific doctrine or gospel of humanity being revealed for the first time because of this emphasis. This nas, this word insan, doesn't mean Arab or Persian or desert dweller or anything like that. It means human being, masculine and feminine. And it is a major theme of the Quran's message. And here again is one of those moments, Quranic moments, in which the social teaching is very, very close to the spiritual teaching, as we'll see when we begin to understand what is a human being according to Islam. These other words that I put here are also synonyms for human being that we find in the Quran. Nas occurs 241 times. The word insan occurs 90 times. The word bashar occurs 37 times. The word abd, which we're all familiar with because of Abdul Baha, occurs 131. It means devoted slave or servant, lover. You have when you read this word abd in the Quran and in the Baha'i writings, you have to add the word lover, because this is what it means. The idea is that a person loves God so much that they will do anything that God wishes. It's not out of fear of some evil, tyrannical being that people respond. It's out of love. And we'll come back to this. And this is, again, one of the spiritual resources of Islam. To do so out of fear, the early mystics said, is insufficient and unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. You must not be a Muslim out of fear, because this negates your Islam. You must do it only out of love. And then, of course, we have mu'min, which is believer. And the Quran is so specific, the Arabic language is so specific and technical and scientific, if you like. There's even the word mu'minat, which means women believers. And so this is these are some of the words. There are many other words that we could bring in to speak about man, but we don't have all the time in the world. We want to keep moving. And I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody at the end of the session. And let me just see where I'm at here. Okay, we're doing okay. All humanity, believe it or not. Sometimes it's a little befuddling to think of this, but the Quran insists that all humanity has received divine revelation. It's not just one group in the Nile to Oxus region that we call the Abrahamic religions. This is one portion of humanity, but all humanity everywhere on the globe has received divine revelation. Now, every community has had an apostle. Every community, that's ummatun. Every community has had an apostle. And only after their apostle has appeared and delivered his message is judgment passed on them in all equity, and never are they wronged. And this revelation has, we would think this logical enough, but frankly, it's not. And this is a very clear principle from the Quran. This revelation that the prophet has brought to every community that has ever lived on the face of the planet, their revelation in a language that they understand. And never have we sent forth any apostle otherwise than with a message in his own people's tongue, so that he might make the truth clear unto them. But God lets go astray him that wills to go astray, and guides him that wills to be guided. For he alone is mighty, truly wise. 14:14. This is a very, very important verse. It's not the case that the prophet came with something that was too strange or too unusual for his or her people. There's nothing in the Islamic scripture that says all prophets were men, by the way. There's, for his or her people to have difficulty with. Although the Quran is it's so beautiful and subtle and interconnected that there's a great tradition of Quran commentary in which people pursue in every generation. Hundreds of Quran commentaries are written by pious Muslims in order to make the meaning more clear. But the Quranic principle is that every individual prophet brings the revelation in the clear language of their people. That's the deal. Human variation is revelation. And among his wonders is the creation of the heavens and the earth and the diversity of your tongues and colors. For in this, behold, there are messages indeed for all who are possessed of innate knowledge. Right? A beautiful, beautiful verse, right? The word wonders will return to. It's a translation of this word ayat, a plural of the word ayah, which is frequently translated as sign, or it also is used to refer to a single verse. An ayah is a verse of the Quran or of religious revelation. It's not just a verse of, it's not a verse of poetry. In poetry, there's another word for verse, but in sacred revelation, the word for verses is ayah. So that it's also a wonder, a sign, a miraculous event. Among his wonders is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the diversity of your tongues and colors. For in this, behold, there are messages indeed for all who are possessed of innate knowledge. This is a remarkable, remarkable statement from the 7th century Arabia. It could have been written last week, right? Because of our global condition, our cosmopolitan chaos that's going on with all the various languages and colors and so forth. But no, this was revealed in sometime before 632 CE. The word ayat, I just said this so we don't have to look at it. This is min ayatihi, his wonders. The Quran's teachings about signs is the foundation of the inexhaustible spiritual resources, which is the subject of this presentation. So the idea of sign we'll return to. One of the most important verses in which the word sign is used is here at Quran 41:53, even though it's a technical term that the Quran uses, as you see here, 382 times in its 6,000 plus verses. But this verse is really an extremely important key. I call it, in my view, it's one of the 5 main important verses in the Quran that reveal the general spiritual elan or character of the Islamic religion. We shall show them our signs in the horizons and in their own souls until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth. Is it not enough that your Lord witnesses everything? So here the words are important to look at a little more deeply. This is a spiritual teaching that our signs, these ayah, these ayatina, are in the, how does it translate? The horizons. What this means, this word afaq, means the outside world, the external world, or if you like, physical reality as distinct from spiritual reality. Spiritual is frequently described as that which is unseeable or untouchable or unhearable, unseen. But it's real and it has knowledge for us. The signs are in the external world, the exoteric world, and the signs are in the world of the souls, in the anfusim, and in the nafs, in the inner deepest part of the human being. So the physical universe is a theater where the signs of God appear, and the microcosm, the spiritual realm of each individual, not just one special individual that happened to be created, but every human being who's ever been created has within them in their soul these signs of God, which they are supposed to contemplate and read, just as they contemplate and read the signs in the external realm, until they know what the truth is. The word for truth here is this wonderfully important Arabic word al-haq. Al-haq. It's, in a sense, the highest word for God that we have in the Quran, in some senses. So, we'll read it again. We shall show them our signs in the horizons and in their own souls until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth. Is it not enough that your Lord witnesses everything? Now, obviously, although we didn't point this out, because we're a bit like fish in water who we can't recognize the water. We don't know the water is there because we're swimming in it all the time. But the signs are also in the Quran. This is where we're getting all our information. So there are 3 books of verses: the physical reality, the internal individual spiritual reality, and the book of God, which is revealed with every messenger of God, this book of God. The most recent, before the Baha'i faith, the most recent was the Quran. And that's where the signs of God are. So the idea is like that, I always say that, like that 3-dimensional chess game. You're supposed to read all 3 levels of these books of signs in synchronization with the directives from the book of God. It's rather remarkable and dazzling. It's like a kaleidoscope, is it not? Human variety is created by God. And had thy sustainer so willed, he could surely have made all mankind one single community. Ummatan wahidatan. But he willed it otherwise. So they are in different communities. Right? If God can make a universe in which every created thing, thought, color, breath, word is the external shell for an internal electron of divine truth, which we're calling a sign, then he surely could have made everybody the same color with the same language. The Quran says he didn't. He did what he did. And why? O mankind, behold, we have created you all out of a male and a female, and have made you into nations and tribes with different colors and different languages, so that you might come to know one another. This is a spiritual experience, to know one another. The Arabic is li ta'arafu, li ta'arafu. This is a verb of reciprocity. It means that each of you are subjects of the same verb, and you're getting to know and recognize each other. And this is part of spiritual training, spiritual knowledge. Verily, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is most deeply conscious of him. Not the one who is an Arab or a Persian or a Greek or lives in the city or lives in the country or speaks most beautifully or speaks a little more lamely or whatever it is. It's the one who is most deeply conscious of God. This is a spiritual resource of the very highest degree. Behold, God is all-knowing, all-aware. All things are created from the same source. So this, you might think of Islam and the Quran and the ideas and the idea and the religion. The word for religion in Arabic is deen, and which also means viewpoint and obligation and duty. It's a very powerful word, and it even indicates it suggests the idea of civilization and its structure. And we can talk about that maybe later. But all things are created from the same source. So it is a symphony of unities, that which Islam teaches. Unity, 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 in like those Chinese boxes, or the Chinese dolls. You have one inside the other. Each is a different iteration of the idea of unity for Islam. Are then they who are bent on denying the truth not aware that the heavens and the earth were once one single entity, which we then parted asunder, and that we made out of water every living thing? Will they not then begin to believe? So the Quran expands the idea of humanity in its 7th century setting, and Muhammad preaching in the Hijaz to a variety of people. It was a remarkably wide variety of people, even in the Hijaz, because this area, Babylonian, Mesopotamian, Nile to Oxus region, had the makings of a very impressive cosmopolitanism, which would come into flower with the flame of Islam igniting it, as we'll see, and if we have time to talk about history. But here, humanity is not determined by culture, by a specific human culture. It's not determined by language. It's not determined by tribal affiliation. It is not ethnic. What the Quran says is that all humanity shares the same epic struggle and journey, which is to go from ignorance to enlightenment. Mm-hmm. This is what the Quran teaches. The journey and struggle are guided by God through the prophet and the messenger, and now Baha'i speak of the divine manifestation. We are all united. The Quran speaks about 25 different prophets, but the early Muslim scholars said, well, if we believe what the Quran is telling us about all the communities having a revelation and a prophet having been sent to each community, in order to account for that magnificent religious history, we would have to have at least 124,000 prophets. And that's what we recognize have existed, even if we don't know their names, right? So the Quran only tells us a little bit about these prophets. 124,000. The beginning of this epic is, we're going to come to this now, it's the Day of the Covenant. It is also the beginning of history and the beginning of consciousness. This Day of the Covenant, it's an event which is told in Surah 7, verse 172. And I usually speak about it anytime I speak about Islam, because it's a truly unique and immeasurably powerful image and religious teaching which Islam has brought to humanity. It seems not to have existed in any form recognizable as this one that we have in the Quran. So it represents the beginning. It is now, of course, if there are hundreds of Quran commentaries written every century, they don't all agree, right? Not everyone agrees about every detail to do with the Day of the Covenant in the history of Quranic exegesis, but the majority of Mufassirun, the exegetes of the Quran, agree that this event that the Quran speaks about in Surah 7, 172, happened in a time before creation, the time of La Zaman and La Makan, when the spiritual realities of the yet to be created humanity were summoned before God. And you all probably know this verse, but I'll read it to you again. This verse is the source of all unities that the Quran speaks about. It is the fountain of unity, if you like. Recall when thy Lord brought forth their offspring from the loins of the children of Adam. Children of Adam, by the way, is another synonym for the word humanity in the Quran. It doesn't mean ethnically the children of Adam. It means human being in the Quran. So recall when thy Lord brought forth their offspring from the loins of the children of Adam. He thus called upon them to bear witness about themselves. He said, "Am I not your Lord?" To which they answered immediately, without hesitation, "Yea, indeed we do bear witness thereto." Of this we remind you, the Quran continues, lest you say on the day of resurrection, Hiyama, verily we were unaware of this. We didn't know this was going to happen. Or lest you should say, verily it was but our forefathers who, in times gone by, began to ascribe divinity to other beings beside God. And we were but their late offspring. Wilt thou then destroy us for the doings of those inventors of falsehoods? So this is the key text from which no argument can be made about the covenant of God. It is where God has promised never to leave humanity alone, and where humanity has, even if they have forgotten, humanity has agreed to acknowledge that God is their Lord, their Rabb, R-A-B-B, like the Hebrew word rabbi, Rabb, Lord. So I think if we had to rank the spiritual resources of Islam, this would be very near the top, if not the top, because it is really the only vision in, as far as I know, in Abrahamic literature in which all humanity has been visualized as being in peace and harmony in the presence of God. Now, this might have come as something of a difficult image for the people of Mecca and Medina to visualize, because their society was just the opposite. It was driven by fighting and competition and violence, in fact. You heard the statement from Abdul Baha earlier that was read from Some Answered Questions. But again, that is also part of the revelation, because this gives the Quran a commonplace or an example of what it talks about when it speaks about this epic journey from ignorance to enlightenment. The word for ignorance is jahl, jahl. And this is a common word in the Quran, either in the nominal or in the verbal form. And it means savagery, barbarousness, ignorance, inability to control anger, betrayal, all of these moral deficits. The opposite of jahal ultimately becomes the word Islam. And Islam may be seen as representing everything that is the polar opposite of jahal. I mean, we frequently in shorthand say, "Oh, Islam, that means submission." That's just the tip of the iceberg, if you like. Islam means, and for an audience today, this really doesn't touch anyone to talk about submission, and it's in a sense unfair to continue to translate the word Islam as submission. What it really means is commitment and devotion to the teachings and the spiritual teachings and social teachings that Muhammad has brought from God, which are going to transform this jahal, this savagery, this ignorance into Islam. There are a number, let's see where we are here. It's 8:30. I have a few more things to share. May I continue?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. So I would like now to look at a few other quotations from the Quran, just to give you an idea of some of these very beautiful verses that nourish and illumine the souls of the people who read the Quran, which are largely Muslims, but other people read the Quran too and get a great deal from it, spiritually and existentially. For example, the leader of the group has to be this famous light verse from the Quran, Surah 24, verse 35, Surah of Light. which is read just like this. Who is there? Ya akhi, maybe I would like somebody else to read. I think I saw the Ragam somewhere.
Corey can read.
Okay, Corey, please. You're
I
muted.
can read. I can read.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The whole quote.
Yes, please.
God is the light of the heaven and the earth. The metaphor for his light is as if there was a niche in which there was a lamp. The lamp inside a glass. This glass, just like a glittering star, an olive tree, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would seem to shine of itself, even though no fire touched it. Light upon light. God guides us to his light, whomever he wishes. Thus God speaks to humanity in metaphors. God indeed is knower of all things.
Wow.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you very much.
No, it was a. Go ahead.
So we see here this is a highly beloved Quranic verse. Anyone who understands Arabic, when they hear it read in Arabic, and I was hoping somebody would be here to read it in Arabic. As I said, I thought I saw Vargam earlier. If he can manage to read it for us in Arabic, it would be much appreciated. If so, let me know, Vargam. Otherwise, we'll have to wait to the next time. But if you look at each, and this is a translation, again, this is a translation. So this is and you know what the great poet Robert Frost said? Yeah, our great English poet Robert Frost. He said, defining poetry, he said, poetry is that which is lost in translation. And so we have to remember that in the original Arabic, there is much more fire and light and electricity, and it's overwhelming. Anyone who knows
read it if you want. I can read it if you want in
Oh,
Arabic.
wonderful. Thank you. One second. Thank you, Ragam. So people who hear this, who know Arabic, but who are not Muslims, are in any case paralyzed by the beauty. So now I'm very happy to introduce Vargam Haqiqi. Please, Vargam.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله نور السماوات والأرض مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم.
Yeah, shukran.
Wow.
So, we could have an entire evening just talking about the light verse, and maybe it's a good idea one day. But you see here, there are various clues about the infinite field and ocean of meaning that these Arabic words of revelation generate in the mind. Each word is worth a book in a sense. If you look at glittering star, for example, or if you look at no oil would shine even if no fire touches it. These are ideas and images and metaphors that feed the soul, that enlarge the soul, that build the soul. And this is what a spiritual resource is. I just draw, for the time being, we just draw attention to an olive tree. The oil that feeds this flame is from an olive tree that's neither of the east nor of the west. What does that mean? How can this be? لا شرقية لا غربية. It's a light that doesn't rise and a light that doesn't set. Those are the words for sunrise and sunset. This light is there at all. It's a sun that shines at all times. This is God is the light of the heavens of the. And then about this other word, light upon light. The Bible would say Abda. This is a wondrous vision. How can you have light upon light? Where are we? How does this work? You see? So this is something that was revealed by the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salam, in the 7th century. It's amazing poetry. They say that the Quran is not poetry, but it is poetic. They say the prophet was not a poet because a poet cannot be a prophet. They have different ways of life. But it doesn't mean that what the prophet says is not artistic and beautiful and poetic. It is this artistry that teaches the faith of Islam to the heart. Hey, okay, we go to the next one. Thank you, Dharga. Here's another one, the throne verse, which is a very beautiful, powerful verse that the Quran teaches, and people everywhere memorize this in Arabic. God, there is no God but Him, the ever-living, the self-subsisting, the El-Hayy, El-Qayyum, right? These are words that are in our writings over and over again. Neither slumber nor sleep overtakes Him. All that is in the heavens and in the earth belongs to Him. Who can intercede with Him except by His leave? He knows what is before them and what is behind them. But they do not comprehend any of His knowledge except what He wills. Here's the center of the verse, even though it's toward the end. His throne extends over all the heavens and the earth. Their preservation fatigues Him not. He is the sublime, the tremendous.
Yeah.
Would you happen to have it there, Dharga? Oh, you're not, you're muted.
Just
Good.
1 second.
Okay, take your time. Time is an illusion, after all. 2:55. Okay. Let me know when you have it. I'll move ahead.
Okay.
So here's another very important verse, which is said millions of times, every day, every second of every day, all around the world without stopping. This, in a way, is like the sun that never rises or sets. It is always being said, this verse. It is the first verse of the Quran as it is arranged today, the one we get, the published Quran. And it begins the prayers, and it begins all sorts of activities and meetings. And it is this: in the name of God, the all-merciful, the all-loving. Praise be to God, the Lord of all worlds, the all-merciful, the all-loving, Master of the day of judgment. It is you we worship. It is you we ask for help. Show us the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not the path of those with whom you are angry or who go astray.
I found it.
Okay, very good. So please, thank you. We're going to now hear the throne verse in Arabic. من فضلك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. So those are three very important verses that are repeated and memorized by Muslims all over the world. But you don't have to be a Muslim to memorize them. You can do it yourself. You see, this is one of the interesting things about our postmodern Baha'i era world. The Quran now belongs to humanity, not just to people who call themselves Muslims. It belongs to the human race. Okay, so we have the obligation to read it and study it and learn from it. Now, there are some other verses that are connected to this idea of the spiritual resources that we're talking about. And I'm calling these, this is a word you don't always run into, apophatic verses. Apophatic means a kind of thinking about God, the kind that Baha'is have in the writings. That is to say that God is beyond description. God cannot be known. God is beyond our ability to conceive. Over and over again, Baha'u'llah and the Bab and Abdul Baha tell us that God is completely unknowable. That's what apophatic means. It's just a faster way of saying it, apophatic. So there are a few verses that emphasize this. At 42:11, there's this famous verse, nothing is like even his likeness. This is this is the first one. Ibn Arabi loved this verse because it has two objects of being not knowable. You cannot know anything that's like him, and you cannot know him. So forget it. Just forget it. The next one is from Surah 112. It is the last verse. Nothing is his like. This is a very important feature of the Quranic message. At the same time, there are these paradoxes that the Quran gives us. Because just after telling us that there's nothing like him and there's no one like him, it says, on the other hand, he is with you wherever you may be. Or the next one at 50:16, and we, that should be a capital W, we are closer to the human being than the jugular vein. So we can't know him, but he's closer to us than our own self. God speaks to humanity in metaphors. We saw that in the light verse. The metaphors are there because we cannot know directly God. We can only point in the direction and hope by some act of blessing and mercy that our souls are expanded to understand. And to God belong the most sublime or the most exalted metaphors. Finally, this verse is very emphatic. Say, O humankind, Ya ayyuhan nas, everybody. O humankind, lo, I am the messenger of God to you all. And finally, all that is in the heavens and all that is in the earth glorifieth Allah, and he is the mighty, the wise. Then we have a series of hadith. I'll go through them faster. We're running out of time. This famous one we see quoted by Baha'u'llah more than once. Whoever knows their self knows their Lord. Man arafa nafsahu fakat arafa rabbahu. Baha'u'llah quotes this, especially in the Kitab-i-Qur'an. Another verse, heaven and earth do not contain me, but the heart of my loving servant contains me. Baha'u'llah quotes this as well. And remember the throne verse? It said that the throne was wider than the heavens and the earth. What is wider than the heavens and the earth here? But the heart of the believing and loving servant. MashaAllah. So the heart can be the throne. It says this in the hidden words in any case. And here's the translation of that hidden word we had earlier. And it has a French and English translation with the Arabic with it, so we can have a look at the vocabulary a little bit. It's a magnificent and beautiful verse, and it raises so many interesting thoughts and spiritual realities. O Son of Spirit, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. Who do you think of when you think of ancient, imperishable, and everlasting sovereignty? Is it yourself that first comes into view? Please. Dikama. It's God. But he's unknowable. But he's sitting on our throne. Where are we? Light upon light. MashaAllah. Thank you all for your kind patience.
Wow. I don't know how to thank you, Dr. Lawson. You know, contribution of people like Dr. Lawson is like several people that I know that they're so important, like Balzani in Italy, Hassan Balyuzi, and Stanwood Cobb that wrote that contribution of Islam to civilization and things like that. The contribution is so valuable, and especially every day we are seeing the value of that. If we are going to be united, we need to know the realities of the divine revelation. And this is really your service to mankind, Todd. I bow down. I love you so much, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. You know that I don't go just.
I love you, Nasser. Yeah. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
And contribution of the, participation of the people tonight testifies to that. I don't have to say anything else. Alex, take over. I'm really worthless. I can't say any more.